Oh, I can't wait for this Christmas. I've got it all planned out. I'll do a holiday themed compilation with a bunch of unconventional cryo and freeze teams. It's going to be great. I'll even throw in a team that'll be a huge stretch to be considered a Christmas team and then justify it by comparing it to those Bruce Willis movies. That joke alone will make it worth it. As long as the Abyss doesn't troll me with bosses and enemies with pyro or dendro shields, we should be good. Well, que sera sera, I suppose. Backup plan, let's talk about the new artifact set. Song of Days Past is the new healer set, and most people have just completely written it off. As of writing this, KQM and the fandom wiki haven't even updated the page to explain how it works yet, so that being said, allow me to take the initiative and get it done in their stead. What this essay right here is saying is that it starts off similar to Clam. For a set period of time, the amount of healing done by the character is calculated, and something happens at the end of that period. For Clam, it caps at 30k, and the period of time for the calculation is 3 seconds. For SDP, it caps at 15k, and the period to reach that is 6 seconds. Double the time and half the cap means healers that heal at 1/4 the effectiveness of characters that can max Clam can get the max benefit of this set. Speaking of the benefit, let's get to that, because that's where things start to get a little complicated. Just a little, don't worry. The cap is at 15k HP, including overhealing. If you've got a dedicated healer on the healer set with the right main stats, you're hitting the cap. You'll probably hit it twice, but we'll talk about that later. So no need to worry about that either. After the 6 seconds is up, your character will get 8% of the amount healed added as damage bonus to 5 attacks. That's 1200. Like I said, don't worry, if your healer is using the set with healing stats, they'll get the 1200. There's a bit of a misconception that the bonus is just 1200 damage added onto whatever damage you do after damage is calculated, and that's not quite right. Let's take a look. As you can see here, my Navi is critting for 3729 damage with her charge attacks, but with the buff, those crits become 5246. For those mathematically challenged, that's an increase of 1517 damage, so obviously it's not just 1200 being added at the end. What's actually happening is that the 1200 is being added to the base damage. Base damage is pretty simple, it's just the character's base stat multiplied by their talent multiplier. If you've got a character with 2000 attack and a talent that does 100% of attack, the base damage would be 2000. This buff is being added to that, so in the previous example, instead of 2000 base, we'd have 3200 base. Then that is multiplied by damage bonus, crit, enemy defense, enemy resistance, and amplifying reactions if applicable. Continuing with our previous example, if the character had 50 damage percent, 100% crit, was the same level as the enemy, and the enemy had no res, and they weren't vaping or melting the damage, the attack would be 3000. With the buff from SDP, the damage would become 4800. Say, instead the ability from the character had a 500% multiplier. The base would be 10,000, and the damage would be 30,000. With the buff, the base would be 11,200, and the damage would be 33,600. So basically, stronger attacks, more damage percent, more crit, and amplifying reactions means that 1200 bonus can become a lot bigger than 1200. It works pretty much the same way as Spread and Aggravate. In fact, it's exactly 75% the bonus value you get from Aggravate with 0 EM on 5 attacks. Except, unlike Aggravate, the attacks can vapor melt. So you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. Or get similar values out of your Aggravates with less EM. But here's the thing, it's bonus base damage, not attack. So say you happen to have an on-fielder that doesn't scale on attack. This buff ends up being kind of like their very own Bennett buff, or you could put it on Bennett and effectively double the buff he gives your active attack scalars. You know how earlier I said we talk about hitting the cap later? Well, it's later, and it's time to talk about the buff's duration. It lasts for 10 seconds or 5 attacks. Once one of those conditions are met, or you swap to a different character, the healing time starts again, and after 6 seconds the buff returns. So you can generally get the buff twice on most on-fielders, or you can get it once on 2 on-fielders with flexible field time. There are a lot of problems that come with dual carries, but this set, Navia and Furina, have me kind of looking at them in a new light. And you'll find out more about that in a couple of weeks if you subscribe. But there's still a couple of important questions to answer. Is it ever better than Clam, and who can use it? First question is pretty simple. Do you get more extra damage out of those 5 to 10 attacks than you would out of your Clam procs? If yes, it's better. If no, it's not. Right now, we don't have a lot of characters that have consistently high motion values with Clam. Sustained 10k healing a second is a pretty tall order. However, 2500 healing per second isn't. If you've got a character with 2500 healing per second, they'll get around 2700 damage from Clam procs over their 12-second healing duration. If your 5 to 10 attacks end up with more than that, it's better. If they heal slightly more than that, it's competitive. If they're a burst healer or Kokomi, it's worse because their first Clam proc alone should hit that 2700. So next, who can use it? It's going to be most effective on characters that heal modest to lower amounts over time, that don't have massive front-loaded healing, and don't rely on other 4-piece bonuses to fulfill their role in the teams. That second part largely depends on the teams they're being run in, so let's go through them one by one. First, Bennett. It's really solid on Bennett. Now that Furina is out, some people have started running him on maidens. This is a strict upgrade over that. If you're using him in teams with mostly off-field damage, we all know when I say that I mean Xiangling, Noblesse or Instructors will still be better because the characters don't have to be on field to receive the buff. But if you're using him with a hyper carry or in a dual carry team, SDP will be a strict upgrade over those sets. More or less the same for Diona, but they're generally better cryo healers if you're trying to maximize stacks on Furina. Outside of that, it'll be pretty good. That pretty much just leaves Dory and Cookie. If you're using them in Hyper Bloom, don't use this set. They need the EM from Gilded. But if they're actually just there for healing application or self-application for Dory, for characters that take up a lot of field time, it'll likely be their best in slot in those teams. Granted, Cookie and Dory are never best in slot characters in those teams, but it's whatever. Now, I don't even know if there are any leaks on Sichuan yet, but looking at this set, I would imagine she won't be front-loading a lot of healing because this set only beats Clam on characters with moderate consistent healing. So maybe, finally, we'll have a character who just has innate 100% uptime on healing without insane energy needs that you don't have to swap into every 12 seconds. Wait, we do have that. Furina. Don't put this on Furina. That said, that does seem to be the kind of kit this artifact set is designed for. Furina's Numa stance, the character. All of that said, definitely don't worry about going out of your way to farm it, but don't let it scare you away from farming Navia set 4, or Ningguang if you're like me. Remember when Flop came out and everyone was saying the domain's a trap because it isn't that much better than Gilded and DPC is really only worth on Wonder, and remember how like a month later, everyone that was saying that magically had Flop sets for their characters? This is pretty similar, don't you think? Do I think it will be quite as severe as that? God, no. But I wouldn't be surprised if history repeated itself at least a tiny bit. Happy holidays, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe, watch the video on screen. Stay tuned because I'll be giving dual carry teams a fair shot for the first time ever pretty soon. And the things I have in mind for them are, let's just say, unconventional. I know voice work on this one has been kind of sketchy, but I did my best in the situation that I'm in right now. But anyways, thanks for hanging out. Bye.